At most turns in recent weeks, federal Labor has announced a policy, whether it be health or energy rebates, which has then been duly matched by the coalition. The total cost adds up to about $16 billion so far now. Joining us live is the Assistant Immigration Minister, Matt Thistlethwaite, and the Liberal Senator Hollie Hughes. Good morning to you both. Hollie, the coalition claims to be better budget managers, yet no answer on how all these policies will be funded. Is that responsible?
Look, we're not going to stand in the way of things like the Labor government bringing in an additional $150 subsidy. But what you've got to understand, Pete, apart from this being taxpayers' own money, it's not even going to cover what the increases are going to be in the next 12 months in excess of $200. So remember, 97 times the Prime Minister was giving you $275 off your power bill. Instead, they're giving your own money back through rebates rather than, you've paid that money in taxes. While without those rebates, energy costs will have gone up over 30% under this government. We know Australians are doing it tough. We do support cost of living relief where it is possible to deliver. But at the end of the day, what you'll see after Peter Dutton's budget in reply speech is a commitment to lower spending that will ensure inflation stays lower and cost of living is able to start cost of living will ease and Australian standard of living.
How is it lower spending, though, if you've matched everything that Labor's done so far?
Well, that's only today. There's still a lot more to go. What's really important, though, Pete, is that tomorrow night's budget is for the next 5 years, not the next 5 weeks. We know Albanese didn't want to deliver a budget. He was forced to after ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. And now, we need to make sure that this is a budget for all Australians going forward for a substantial period of time, not just their election campaign.
Matt, are you buying votes with those energy rebates?
No, Pete, we've chosen to prioritise cost of living support for Australians. And that means that we're heading in the right direction, but there's more work to do, and that's reflected in those energy rebates. It follows on the back of the $300 energy rebate over the last couple of years. We'll extend it to the end of this year to make sure that we help Australians get through this difficult period and that there's better times ahead. So it's our choice to prioritise cost of living support for Australians at the moment, and it follows on the back of our announcements regarding Medicare and restoring bulk billing.
How long do you keep those going for, though? How long do you keep those energy rebates going for, though? And will that change after the election?
Well, as long as it takes to ensure that we get Australians through this difficult period. We're heading in the right direction with the first rate cut, hopefully of many more. The economy is growing again. We've got relatively low unemployment, which is great. So Australians are in work. Inflation is coming down. So we're heading in the right direction. We're not there yet, but we're almost there. So we'll keep this support going until we get to that position where the economy's in a growing position, productivity is improving, real wages are improving, and we're almost there. And that reflected in these cost of living supports.
Do you concede, I mean, even though those energy rebates have been in place, which is just our money coming back to us anyway, do you accept that folks are still in the red when it comes to their energy bills despite those rebates?
Look, it's been a tough time with energy costs because of a number of factors. The war in Ukraine really had a dramatic effect on international energy markets. The recovery after COVID with supply chain constraints has really affected those. But that's why we put that support in place, and it's worked. Energy prices are much lower than they would have been without those energy rebates. We're heading in the right direction. We're going to provide that support until the end of the year, and hopefully we're in a better position next year to ensure that we don't need that support into the future.
Would that be the same for you, Hollie? Would it just be a kind of a one-off $150 rebate and then you'd nix them?
That's just extraordinary, that your energy bills would be so much higher without our rebates. They'd also be, this is insanity. We are taxpayer subsidising your energy bills, and we'll do that for as long as we need to, is basically what Matt just said, because of this renewable-only rush that this government is insisting on. Their reduction around gas production, the hurdles they're putting in place around making sure that there is enough energy in the market, that the transmission lines are capable of delivering it, and yet their solution is taxpayer-funded rebates. I mean, that's extraordinary, absolutely and utterly extraordinary. Under a coalition government, we have a technologically agnostic approach to energy, and we want to see energy come down, not taxpayers having to be subsidised into the never. That is just extraordinary.
Matt, Jim Chalmers has said throughout most of this term, and bearing in mind that deficits are now far off into the distance, he always referred to the debt as being Liberal debt. So with your spending, is it now Labor's debt?
Labor debt.
Well, we inherited almost $1 trillion worth of debt.
Well, but most of but I'm just talking about the line.
Again,
that's true. It was COVID which you supported, but I mean, Jim Chalmers always refers to it as being, almost $1 trillion in Liberal debt. But given your spending, is it now Labor debt?
100%.
But we're reducing debt.
Yeah, but just to that
overall,
point, is it your debt? Because it's not reducing; it's only getting bigger.
It's the country's debt, and we're reducing it to make sure
not your debt.
that there's not as big an impost on the budget into the future. We've made $95 billion worth of savings in the budget, and a further $1.2 billion worth of savings will be announced in this budget. We've done that because we've made reforms to the aged care policies, we've made reforms to the NDIS, and importantly, we've cut back on the use of government contractors and labour hire in government departments. So we're trimming some of those excesses that were put in place by the previous government. And that's responsible economic management. And that's why we can say that debt is coming down. And that's why we can say that the budget looks in a better position than it would have otherwise been.
All right. Is debt coming down, Hollie?
$347 billion worth of new spending under this government. It is absolutely Labor's debt. Isn't it extraordinary, Peter? It's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault. And now we know it's not Labor's spending, it's the country's debt. It's the country's debt. So all you Australians out there, just know it's your fault. It's not Jim's and it's not Albo's, it's yours. What an extraordinary thing to say. I think we're going to see red as far as the eye can see, because this government is, this isn't even going to cover all the off-budget spending they've got. This is a government addicted to spending, and we're going to see it continue to get worse.
All right.